The film opens as Shepherd George Hardy is writing a letter to someone named Rebecca. He tells her all about the sheep in his meadow, and how all of them are special, but he has a few that he spends a lot of time with. There are Ram brothers Reggie and Ronnie, who love to bash things, Zora, a curious little lamb, Cloud, a sheep who is a bit of a diva, Sir Richfield, a sophisticated sheep, Wool Eyes, a sheep who cannot see because of the wool over his eyes, and Mopple, a ram that has an excellent memory. Caleb arrives to speak with George for a moment, but whenever the sheep want to forget something unpleasant, they all collectively choose to forget, but Mopple cannot forget even if he tried. At the inn, Beth finds from the postwoman that George is writing to Rebecca using rose-scented paper. As Elliot is later getting home, he crashes his car into a tree in the rain. Meanwhile, at George's home, there is a knock on his door that startles him awake. In the morning, Lily and Mopple go to discover George's body lying in the grass. Like how she believes sheep end up when they pass on. Lily on his face. Caleb leads him out safely. Back on the meadow, the sheep try to solve the murder themselves. The winter lamb mentions seeing George's ghost, leaving his body in the night, but the others dismiss this claim. Despite having earlier told Tim she has never visited her father's meadow. Sebastian also objects to the flock's treatment of the winter lamb, since he was born outside the spring as well. He tells Lily about his backstory, where he fight with dogs until George rescued him. Tim begins his investigation by narrowing down the suspects from the will reading and their motives against George, and during his sermon, Hilcoate admits that he and George were involved in some business that led to a falling out, which is why he knows that the will was addressing him, not Caleb, as the bad shepherd. Tim and Elliot also confront Rebecca after finding out her real name is Chastity Cramps, and that she had indeed been at the meadow before. Adding to this is that Tim finds the poison berry used to kill George stuck to the bottom of her shoe. Rebecca protests that she is innocent and how she had been communicating with George via letters since he had always felt guilty about having to give her up for adoption since he was very young. Knowing that their flock will merge with Caleb's flock soon, Lily and Mopple cross into his meadow to meet the rest of the sheep. One of them simply approaches Lily and ominously warns her to run. Shaking hands, as they realize that this farm is meant to slaughter the sheep for meat, thus making them the two murderers. Two German Shepherd guard dogs chase Lily and Mopple into the meadow, but they are defended by Sebastian. Unfortunately, he is fatally wounded by a dog bite, and he dies next to Lily. This forces her to come to terms with the fact that sheep die just like humans and do not become clouds, something that Mopple has to break to her since she has willfully forgotten the same thing happened to other sheep like her parents. Lily says the grief is too hard for her to remember, but Mopple tells her it's necessary for her to hold on to the memories of her loved ones like George. Lily and Mopple return to the flock, breaking the news about Sebastian to them. As she prepares to give up, Lily sees a vision of George speaking to her and understanding her. This gives her the encouragement she needs to bring his killer to justice. Lily gets back on the case and the people gather in the middle of town as Rebecca is being transferred for prosecution. However, Tim sees Lily, Mopple, and the winter lamb with his hooves covered in paint. The pieces come together for Tim, and he stops to reveal to everyone he knows who the real killer is. Rebecca is the victim. The real killer was someone who was not physically at the will reading, Mr. Peter Van Vuren, a.k.a. Elliot Matthews. Since George was found with one hand covered in blue and the other in green, Tim knew that the blue was from his sheep medicine after visiting him following his car accident. It was easy for him to elude suspicion since Lydia kicked him out of the room, allowing him to call without being detected. He had hoped to acquire George's $30 million inheritance if Rebecca were convicted, going as far as to plant the poison berry on her shoe. Peter nearly weasels his way out until Tim pulls a hair off him that could be analyzed and convict him. Peter attempts to escape, but Reggie and Ronnie are called for a legitimate cause for bashing. They destroy Peter's car and leave him to be arrested. In the aftermath, Lydia tells Rebecca that the new will cannot be honored, so the original will stipulates she will inherit George's land, growing the flock even more as she stays on the land.